Hosted by Ed Steer and Dan Bolter, Life in Digital explores the ever-changing media landscape with today's industry leaders. Hi and welcome to a Life in Digital special. I'm here with Oliver Klander, Commercial Director, MENA at Liveramp. Ollie, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ed.
You picked a lovely sunny day.
I know, sunny but cold.
Yeah, well, this will probably go out mid-Feb, I reckon, so end of January.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's your January been?
It's been really good, actually. It's been a fast and furious start to the year.
And for you guys, end of Q3 or beginning of Q4?
It's Q4.
Q4, you're in that way.
Yes, this is year end. It's the final push. So it's always an interesting year end to the year for us. January, the pressure doesn't let up, but it's super exciting. We all look forward to April, and then we start it all over again.
And it goes again. Yeah, so I do not mean in the podcast, so we move on from this, but I often wonder about moving our financial year to line up more with the financial year. Because what I find is quite challenging sometimes is driving to year end at Christmas and then coming back in January and doing like 50, 60 reviews, when actually you can have lots of momentum. So I do really see the benefits of running where your year doesn't end at Christmas from a financial point of view. Yeah. Because you can kind of, a different way of planning for the business, but pros and cons.
Yeah, no, I also think that like festive breaks and different bits, everything seemed to change after COVID. Over the last couple of years, that like the pressure hasn't let up. It's 24/7, 365. Like you had seasonality trends like summer, Easter, Christmas and other bits, but that doesn't really seem to, I don't know if the world's just changed, but it seems to be, it's full on 100%.
We've really seen that from a hiring perspective, and actually we were taking on, the week before Christmas, we had our biggest week of the year for new vacancies coming through, which would be incredibly exciting, but half our staff was on holiday. Yeah. So it was like, oh. So yeah, it's very, very, very different. The trending out the window. I think, we do. Yes, I think it's the kind of always on mentality, and actually purely from a hiring point of view, I don't know if it's been the same with your customer journey, but video calls means you can still interview right up to the wire, because while people might not go for an in-person meeting, the week before Christmas, hopping on a video call is quite easy. So I think that's one of the reasons why I do it so much.
Yeah, I find this whole concept of video conferencing and video calling slightly terrifying, as well as breaking down and changing the customer journey, right?
You wrote a book about it.
I did.
Did you?
I think that, God, I wish I bought shares in Zoom before COVID. But I think that COVID changed the way that people interact with each other, both inside internal and external parameters. But I also think we're reaching a stage where the industry's realised you can't survive on just teleconferencing and video conferencing alone. You can't build up the same relationships. People aren't adapt to being able to build lasting, long personal relationships when it's all over video conferencing. So I think we're still in this hiatus moment of where in person is creeping back in.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Our number one drive is FaceTime with customers.
It has to be, but it's now, the interesting bit about that is you can do that both with internal and colleagues. It's when a client gives you the space to do the in-person, which is really interesting, because it's almost like sending people to voicemail when mobile phones first came out and you had caller ID. Suddenly there was the rise of voicemail and call screen, right? Being screened. Now I feel like you're being screened slightly before you get a face-to-face session potentially with somebody new. You're being screened over video conferencing, right? So that's so important that you get that bit right, but always push for the face-to-face as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to wind back to some of the subjects for today. So your journey in AdTech, Ollie, it's been an interesting one. Can you give us the overview, what it's been like?
Yeah. Well, I'm ashamed to say that it started, and I looked before this. I started in advertising with radio sales with a company called Extracts which was a magazine and a company called EMR, based out of King's Cross.
Yeah.
And I used to sell radio coverage, editorial radio coverage across like Kiss, Jazz FM, Capital, massively empowering, and I loved advertising. But it was editorial, so it all went through a magazine. And then I moved into sort of more consulting sales until somebody told me about this thing called SEO, or search engine optimization, back in like 2007. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. So my journey into digital started in 2007, joining a company called Big Mouth Media, which like seems to have a massive alumni, because I still see Phil Acton around, and we still see lots of other people that I worked with as we've all moved in different paths.
It was a great story, Big Mouth, as well.
Big Mouth is an amazing story, and it was, I was there when, just before the acquisition with Global Media, up until the acquisition with LBI, and just pre-Publicis. So the company just kept on growing and growing and growing, and it was back in the day where SEO was like, it was all about the number of PRs you did, or the links you created, or the articles you submitted, and it was about keyword strategy and content, but it was quite basic at the time, so it was a volume game. But then my journey, I went on to a boutique agency as a director and spent 7 years there working, and exited that business. And then the journey was really interesting because it took me from SEO into affiliate marketing, paid marketing, paid search, social media marketing was just starting to come about. So I really loved the whole concept of content and engagement through web channels, whether that was paid or whether that was organic, and whether that was social media marketing and influencer marketing. And I say influencer marketing, we're talking about like engaging in that social sphere, but not quite like TikTok. Otherwise,
first generation.
Yeah, first generation. And then I exited that business, and then I spent a couple of years really trying to find out which part of digital I enjoyed the most, because it was starting to fracture into so many different streams. So I went into the data space, the sort of programmatic, utilizing data to drive results. So did some stints with the likes of Crimtan, AdTech, just as a contractor, going in and working from a commercial perspective to understand what it was that I really enjoyed. And it landed me into the data space.
Yeah, great UK-owned businesses as well.
And the data space for me was like, it was the one that really excited me, because I have a massive passion for understanding or enabling brands and partners to understand consumer profiles. And fast forward to now, I've been with Liveramp for the last several years, which I never expected to stay at Liveramp that long.
Post-COVID?
No, it was just as COVID was starting to finish.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been with them for 4 years, in a number of different iterations. It's a phenomenal company. If you look at Liveramp and you look at their journey in this space, a key player in the sort of the space of being able to help companies join offline to online. So they were the pioneers of turning an email address into a cookie ID, right? If that was the business model today, it wouldn't work, right? Because that's defunct, cookies are gone, that type of thing's gone. But the pivot into this clean room era and understanding data federation and joining brands together from a data collaboration point of view, that's hugely powerful, because many have tried but have sort of stalled at that thing. So I do feel Liveramp leads that era.
And the market's moving towards your technology as well? Is it
100%.
Yeah.
And it always seems to be at the forefront of technology. The other thing is Liveramp is agnostic, right? There's not many companies that can truly say that, right? So Liveramp is not a media provider. We're not a Google or a Meta or a TikTok or any affiliated to any part of that sort of end point of inventory deliverability. We're also not a data provider. So we don't hold data. We're literally the conduit and the infrastructure that connects those two things together. So it doesn't matter whether you're working with advertiser or premium publisher A, B or C, right? We have no preference. That's why we've got 500 odd partners that are connected to the platform, because you can push your data to any platform. That's really important, because from a collaboration point of view and a privacy by design point of view, you don't want to put restrictions on where people can go after they've got their data, and you don't want to put restrictions on what data can be brought in, because it's down to the partners that you work with that should design those parameters.
My house got a side point, but retail media's been so hot, and I know Liveramp have been at the forefront of that. Can I understand what role is Liveramp playing in retail media?
Many roles.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not possible to define it to one specific stream or role. The interesting thing is that Liveramp has analytics, analysis, measurement, and infrastructure that enables curation of data. Liveramp has infrastructure that enables pre-packaged and packaged data and data-ready sort of segments to be able to push down to the industry. Liveramp has relationships with premium publishers that are unique, that enables measurement against campaigns, against exposure data, which other people can't get. So there's many different sort of pinnacle parts that join that together. But I think the thing that helps Liveramp drive this sort of retail media or commerce media narrative, because I always feel like retail media is specific to like a Tesco's or a Walmart or a Kroger or an Albertsons or a Sainsbury's. It's like that's specific to them. But commerce media is anybody that's holding data that drives commerce, right? And then it's also people that want to collaborate within that space. So if you're brand A and you know the commerce organization here sells your products, there's a natural desire to want to collaborate, because this commerce partner drives footfall, drives transactions and drives revenue for you, but without the product there's no demand for them. So the whole piece is starting to change, and I think that the one thing I'd say with Liveramp is it's actually driving a different narrative. It's driving collaboration between partners that historically have never collaborated together, because A, they've not seen the benefits, or B, there's just never been a desire to do it.
That's really cool, and that creates opportunities for everybody, I guess, to increase revenue and to...
100%.
Which is really cool. And sorry to jump around, but you stepped into, within Liveramp, a MENA role, which was, how long into your journey there was that?
Super cool. So like my Liveramp journey was really interesting. So I joined heading up and building out the CPG vertical inside the UK market. That was really successful. I had really good fun doing that because it was a brand new market. Look, full disclosure, Ed, I like new things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, after 20 odd years, I quite enjoy trying out and being a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So taking on the CPG role, CPG vertical, I remember a conversation I had with my then line manager, and he said, "Are you sure you want to take this? Because we've got no clients in this vertical." And I went, "Yeah, great. Like, I love it. It's great. Let's go after that." So I had a really good time building that out, and that quickly morphed into this international role, where I, along with another colleague, we helped pioneer this global pursuit infrastructure inside Liveramp, where we would all work with our colleagues in different regions internationally to drive global adoption of data collaboration, which was super cool. That's now part of the function of Liveramp. So it was something that was new, that was built out, and embedded within the business. But then last year, like just before April, a colleague who I've worked with, who I massively admire, and she's now my boss now, said this role was coming up. And so I applied for it, right? Internal application to apply for the role. And the role was to head up the MENA region, which is a new region for us. It's part of the emerging regions, so it's definitely not an easy task, right? Because all emerging regions are new. And I love the sort of Middle East culture anyway. I'd sold in the Middle East before. Email was one of my clients for a number of years. So I loved the idea that I could sort of tap into that market. But MENA is really interesting, and I tell you the reason why it's really interesting is that I like to do this analogy. It's a bit like the landline versus the mobile phone across Africa, right? They couldn't put the infrastructure in for the landline because it cost too much money, it was cost prohibitive, but they would never have scaled it out. So they skipped the landline and went straight to the mobile, right? That's not to say that there's no landline infrastructure there, but as a mainstay, it was mobile first.
Yes.
From a collaboration and a data point of view, the Middle East is very much like that, right? So they don't have a legacy attached to long-standing trading deals between supermarkets, global CPG brands, data collection. It's made up predominantly of big conglomerates that own maybe 10, 20, 60 different brands in region. And they have a huge move towards loyalty. Loyalty is the underpinning part of a lot of how they work. So they are fast forwarding into this era of collaboration and are much more open to collaborating with data because there isn't the history and legacy holding them back from moving forward. So I think the Middle East is going to emerge very, very strong in this data collaboration sort of commerce media era. And it's a super exciting region to work in.
And the growth seems just off the scale in terms of potential.
Huge.
I don't know if it counts, but is it zoned in on Dubai, Saudi, across where's the attention?
So it is KSA and UAE, so Dubai and KSA. They are the two biggest sort of drivers of innovation. But it also includes like Bahrain, Kuwait, Turkey, Egypt, so that whole sort of MENA region. But I do think the innovation is definitely being driven by KSA and Kuwait and UAE. I mean, if you look at some of the buildings some of the places that they're building over there at the moment, my feed on LinkedIn is full up with some of the stuff.
Yeah, I've seen it, it's awesome.
Yeah, like things like the line in Saudi, all of the things, they're always pushing the boundaries. I was at AdTech last year, which was like, I can only describe it as like 20 times the size of any other conference that I've been to. A bit like CES in Vegas, just without the casinos and the booze. Right?
So more gets done.
But the power and the speed at which they drive forward with decisions is unparalleled.
Is it really? But it doesn't happen by luck, does it?
No.
I have a friend who's taken a role in Saudi, and I won't show you, but I was hearing about kind of the environment, what they're building in the role. It does sound absolutely amazing and intense. Did you spend much time over there?
Every 5 to 6 weeks I'll go over. I might have a little bit of a break, but back to our point, in person is always going to be better than video conference calls. Time zones now, they're 4 hours behind us, so it's a 5 o'clock in the morning start for a 9 o'clock meeting. And the UK, that's not so bad. It's definitely not like, I don't know, circa 14 hours for San Francisco or whatever it is. It's a completely
fit a day around it.
I mean, the region is I mean, if you look at the UAE, for example, like it's a population of just over 10 million, of which 2 million are Emiratis nationals, right? That means that like 80% of the population are expats, right, of multiple nationalities. So it's a very interesting region to do business in, both culturally and also with the diverse talent, which is multi-international. It's like, yes, you've got it in lots of organisations, but there's always a predominant base there. But in the UAE and across there, the talent is truly international from many different places.
Yeah, which creates an amazing, I can imagine, opportunity to learn and to grow with others.
100%.
And actually to bring, if you can harness that experience and difference in opinion, I'm sure you can create absolute excellence.
Yeah.
And I know you said you love new.
Yeah.
So what is new for whether that's for Liveramp, for yourself, for AdTech? What do you see as being the new themes? What's next?
Do you know what? It sounds corny, but I think collaboration is at the forefront. I think that's new. But I think that the early adopters will really reap in the rewards. But I think
And when you say the early adopters, do you mean from a brand perspective or an agency?
No, I mean from every facet. So agency, brand, and commerce retailer. And the ones that will win are the ones that are open to that piece, to work in a privacy by design way. The ones that will lose are the ones I feel like we're heading towards a sort of blockbuster Netflix type scenario when it comes to how people interact with the data that they hold or the data they want to work with, or indeed a bit of like a House of Fraser or a Debenhams type thing for the high street. Like people don't talk enough about how iconic brands disappear, right? And they can disappear overnight. And they can be replaced by something that was seemingly innocuous or like considered zero threat. And I think the reason the blockbuster Netflix stuff always gets talked about so much is like because the narrative was they're no threat, they have nothing, they have no estates, they have no real estate, as in they have no bricks and mortar, they don't have a customer base, and what they considered was their bedrock foundation of stability was actually going to be their downfall.
Yes,
right?
no one dropped it.
Right, exactly.
DC or B2B, no one dropped it.
So I think
Netflix did.
Yeah. So I think we're in a situation where like this change will be seismic, and there are a few players that are moving really fast towards it, and there are some that just aren't, because it's just either too hard to change internally. As I like change, but that's like not the norm. And I should preface that I like change, but within my parameters.
Yes.
I don't like it outside of mine. So there is a caveat. So I think that will be the next big thing for AdTech, and I think that as we move closer, I think authenticated deterministic style targeting, or this authenticated web, a bit like PAIR or ATS, by Liveramp, all of these things where you're actually verifying the signal of the person or verifying the identity. I think that's going to become a big thing. I think that we have to move towards an authenticated web, not an anonymous one. I mean, how long did we all talk about the cookie demise? Like
that was my
it's like
last year.
It's like. And I actually wrote a post like a year before when they delayed it, saying this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like this is like the world's worst kept secret. It's never going to happen. But what is happening is there's a slight it's a sleight of hand, right? Because Google is then giving the option to consumers to opt out. And it's really interesting because if you think about your own search patterns, like I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, it's like I will actively, personally, not accept cookies. Maybe as a little bit of a spike from certain sites, but also because like for some reason inherently, even though I know that there's a million others that are being dropped, I might increase the performance of my experience in some way. But I do that. And if I have an option to toggle off to say that I'm opting out to everything through a browser, like Chrome, I'm going to switch that option on, right? Because I just feel like it's easier for me, and then I can have a value handshake with only the brands I want to have that handshake with. So I think we're facing like quite a shift change, and the different demographics of users from boomers to Gen Zs to millennials to all the others, I forget them. The only one that I seem to always remember is a boomer or a Gen Z or a millennial. Like they all have different patterns and they all have different desires. And I think there's always this focus on data that's sometimes misconstrued, right? Like I used to say to people, like, do you have a mortgage? Do you pay rent? Do you have utilities? Do you pay council tax? Do you have a mobile phone? Do you have like a loyalty card? I don't know, club card or Nectar? Do you have debit card? Do you have a bank account? Do you have a mobile phone? Do you know all of these things? Well, okay, car insurance, car, like all of these things mean that you have data points everywhere already.
So many.
There's nothing you're going to be able to do about that, right? You're on systems wherever it goes. So the idea is control the controllables, and remember that like nobody's anonymous. So the idea is that brands who get on board with collaboration and owning data, they have an opportunity to have a value handshake. And if they get that value handshake right, they can do all the things they want to do with the data that they hold on both their consumers or that their partners hold. So that's what's new. It's not that new, but I think that we're moving towards
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's healthy for everyone concerned. And the year for AdTech, it's been for us last year was a good one. There's obviously always noise around the state of the industry. For most organisations, 22, 23 were quite challenging. We saw the layoffs. But yeah, what's your take? What's your take on the state of the industry? And I guess from a M&A perspective, marketing budgets. Where do you think we're up to?
It's a super interesting question. I think the industry is strong.
Yeah.
In certain areas.
Yeah.
I think it's really weak in others. And I think the areas that are weak are areas that haven't evolved and haven't grown. Like, I remember the days with Unanimous, iEconomy, and like when programmatic was bought on an IO and you got a spreadsheet at the end. Those businesses would never happen now, right? I think we're in a stage where if you're not adding extra value in understanding your delivery, so if you're a premium publisher, like what value are you giving against the spend? What value are you giving against measurement and reporting? How do you demonstrate that value? So I think that anybody who's nailing that is set up for success. Anybody who's not addressing that question, like I saw a post this morning that Mind, the charity, is withdrawing from X.
Okay.
Right? Like they're no longer on X because they don't see value behind it and they don't see anything else. I saw another post yesterday of a guy who was working B2B on Meta for Uber riders.
Yeah, I read that.
Recruiting
$30 million a year.
Yeah, 35 million.
That's a lot of money.
$35 million by switching off Meta.
Yeah,
right?
I thought, wow.
So those are the things that I think are really important. People are becoming far more adept at being able to understand the value of what it is that they're putting into the ecosystem. So brands that offer, or businesses that offer a solution that combat that, I think are set up for success. Ones that don't, like, you've got to have a really good customer relationship and a really good spread of your customers, because otherwise I think that it's not going to be very exciting for them.
So as always, there'll be winners and losers.
100%.
And we will move forwards,
Yes.
But some things never change.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Oliver, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in, and the best luck for 2025.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Life in Digital. If you want to know more about our guest or any of the topics that we covered today, you can find out more in our show notes and on our website.